how do you underwrite these deals? And I kind of started down that path and then got lost and asked for redirection. So I appreciate the question, Barrington. It's the same as a duplex. Income minus expenses. Obviously, we're going to have some different expenses because we're running a business, and we've got some management software that you wouldn't have if you just had a 2-family house. We've got a marketing budget, etc. But the way we value a storage facility is we're going to take, and what I want to do, guys, real quick is I'm going to share with you a formula, and then I'm going to also, I want to tell you before I do that we're going to use this formula essentially 2 different times. We're going to run it as currently, right? So let's say we bump into a property, and maybe I'll use an example here. I'll make one up as we go. We're going to look at the property. What is the income today? What are the expenses today? It's a simple subtraction problem, and it's going to produce what is known as the net operating income. So let's say we bump into a property, I find it, and grandma's running it. It's a mom and pop facility, 30 years old. Looks a little worse for wear, but she's full, and so she's happy, but she wants to move to Florida, whatever the example might be. Seller motivation in this industry is the same as it is with any of the sellers that you guys have talked to when you're buying single family houses, right? Death, divorce, disease, dislocation. Let's say it's bringing in $100,000, and she says, and it's great because it only costs us $50,000 to run the property. So I make $50,000 every year. I'm going to go, cool. $100,000 minus 50,000 gives us an NOI of 50K. Now, right now, who's familiar with cap rates? Raise your hands if you're semi-familiar with cap rates. And okay, so a good number of you, those that aren't on camera, maybe not, but that's okay. I'm going to keep this very simple. We're not going to get into a big discussion unless you guys ask again later about cap rates. But generally speaking, a cap rate is the return on investment that you would receive, assuming you bought the property with all cash. And so we use the cap rate to turn this net operating income, the $50,000 that we just talked about, into a value, a projected value for the property, or in this case, an as-is value, because it's actually making 100. They're actually spending 50, which means there's $50,000 in NOI. I'm going to multiply that to get a as-is value by 12.5. The other way to get it, that same number, is to divide by 0.08. 0.08 is the cap rate that I'm using just because of my knowledge of the market and because it's my hypothetical example, and I can make up an 8 cap. But that's a pretty good number. Properties are trading in that range right now in most of the markets that we operate in. So someone help me with the math. 50K times 12.5 is 425,000. That's what the property's worth as it sits today based on the income it's generating. Would I pay that? Maybe, maybe not. To address the underwriting, what I'm going to do is look at what could the property be worth, knowing what I know about the market. Now, again, I'm not suggesting I'm going to pay what it could be worth, but I need to know what it could be worth, my after repair value, right? We might call that in the storage world the after optimized value, because we're not just repairing the physical property and then selling it based on what the comps say. We're repairing it physically, but we're also doing an operational overhaul. We're implementing systems that allow us to run these properties completely remotely with what's known as an unmanned management strategy. There's a 3-pronged approach that I'm happy to share with you guys. But getting back to our example, based on the current income, it's worth 425K. Well, I may look at that property, and I'm only going to be interested, as I told you earlier, if I can double or triple it in value. So I need to get it up. I either need to buy it for very little, or I need to know that I can add lots of value, or a combination of both. And so let's say I look at the market, I do a quick rent comparison. I see how this property stacks up against the competitors. I see that maybe there aren't as many competitors as there should be. We look at supply and demand, which is based on population. And I go, you know what? This property, as it sits today, should be renting for, and this isn't an absurd example, 150K. We should be able to get rents up by 50%, right? So if it's renting for 150K when I'm done, she had expenses of 50K. And in this example, it just happens to work out that that's the same number I'm going to use, but I'm not using it because it's the number that she's spending. I think she was spending too much in expenses relative to the 100K. But I know that generally speaking, we can run these properties for about a third income to expense ratio. So a third of the income is going to go toward OpEx. So now we're going to subtract the 50K and we've got $100,000 net operating income. Can I get a couple of head nods just so I know we're still tracking a little bit? Yes. All right.
Yes.
Cool. So we've got our NOI of 100K and we're going to apply the same cap rate. 8, which means multiplying by 12 and a half. If I do my math, it's 1.25 million. You guys tracking with me there?
Yeah, I think a lot of people are stunned by how fast those numbers grow, Mike.
Well, so the numbers grow fast, and I'm just going to be fully honest because I'm doing math in my head with 42 people either looking at me or at least seeing me. I'm trying to battle the demons. Like, is your number exactly right? If my numbers aren't exactly right, forgive me. The bottom line is the concept holds true, and the formula works: income minus expenses divided by cap rate. And now, as I say it out loud, I am comfortable with the 1.25 million projection. Now, here's the crazy part. We kept cap rate the same there, just for ease of simplicity. But the truth is, when you take an underperforming property that needs a lot of work to it, it's going to command, because there's work to be done, you're not going to be able to get the same cap rate. I'm likely to sell this property at a 7 cap instead of an 8 cap. And if that's the case, the value is closer to 1.4 million instead of 1.25. But that's a little bit in the weeds. The bottom line is what we're doing in storage is we are capitalizing on the exponential relationship between net operating income and value, because these properties sell at a multiple of the income that they bring in. So if you can increase that income, it's not a linear growth in value. And then on top of that, you get the compounding effect of what's known as cap rate compression. I mean, the cap rate goes down, so the value goes up even higher. And the profits become almost they start to fall into that category of it's too good to be true. And I get it. Like, that's the healthy skepticism that will serve you well. That's one of the reasons I built the Storage Rebellion, is because, like, there's no better proof or inspiration for people than to see that it actually works. And so when we get a bunch of people together, several of whom are on this call, I'm seeing Max and Scott and Joe and Gabe and Ryan and forgive me, Jonathan, and many others that I'm probably I can't see on my second screen, Brian, Sant, Chris Michaels. Like, these are all people that are available to, I hope, share with you the knowledge that I've in some form or fashion shared with them over the last several years.